Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. What we're going to be doing today is extending our single page application React capabilities with one of the current trends for internet pages, and that is internet pages. Wow, I am like a million years old. Um, is to have them just kind of infinitely scroll. And what this is doing basically is just kind of giving our user a seamless experience, kind of a thing targeted towards mobile users who, again, are just kind of flicking their screens and having things scroll forever, right? We could go to, so for instance, we could go to a site like Twitter and just kind of, scroll forever, and things are just going to keep loading in forever. And what's happening is that the application, whatever you're running, is detecting that the user has scrolled to the bottom of the page. We are going to make an AJAX call and load in fresh content. Okay, so that's kind of the idea. And we're going to follow this tutorial here. It's basically going to pull some stuff from NASA, and we're going to bring in a couple of new packages that are going to help with that. And honestly, it's really not that bad. Um, I'm going to use our pre-existing single page application, and I've actually done this demo already to make sure it works. So the um, packages will already be installed, but I'll go through and run through that again just to show you what's going on anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out, and let's get started. So we have a React app already. I want to npm install superagent and lodash.debounce. Now these are going to be two packages um, that we're basically going to need. Now, odd cut there. I was just kind of refreshing myself on a couple of things. Lodash.debounce is a package which is going to help us with some kind of delayed invocations. Superagent we're going to use for reaching out and calling other things. I already have these installed. Hopefully I'm in the correct directory here, but yeah, we should be all set. If I pop over to my package.json, we've got Lodash, we've got Superagent. Now, let's see. We'll try this out as is. So the guide is for Superagent 6, Lodash debounce 4. We've got Lodash 4.08, which is the same version. Superagent is up a version, which is hopefully not going to break anything, but we'll give this a shot. So we'll kick off our npm start, and we need to create a infinite scrolling thing. So I did this already, so you see the scroll.js. We're going to create one from scratch here, and we'll follow their naming scheme just to make sure that everything's working fine. So let's create an infinite. Let's have something pop up, take my focus, and break everything. Only need one of these windows open. So this is our single page app. Where's my infinite space? Here we go. Infinite space.js. Okay. And I'm just going to copy and paste this right in, and we'll talk through it. So basically, we are importing our typical libraries here. So bring in superagent for request. We're going to bring in debounce from Lodash, and we're going to create our scrolling component as a class instead of a simple function like some of the other ones, because again, we're going to use a bit more here. We're going to have some stateful variables, so we're going to have our props. We're going to have a state. This apods variable, we're going to basically track our data in there, and then a pretty simple div component that's just going to host all of our content. Alrighty, so basically one thing that I should talk to, this debounce function I mentioned, it's for kind of deferring function calls. Basically, we're only going to run a function after a set amount of time, so we're not going to scroll and call this function 500 million times. That wouldn't be good for performance, or probably run into some synchronicity errors as well. But we have our basic component here, and let's go ahead while we are in here and update our main application. So in app.js, I'm going to create a new route, path equals infinite. So we'll call the path infinite, and then our element equals infinite scroll space. What did we call this? Infinite space. Okay. Infinite space. It was right there, just didn't add it in. And then we need to close that tag off. And look in that. Thank you, VS Code. You automatically imported it for me as well. So basically just adding a new route for our router. We need to add a new link. So let's add in a new link. Link 2 equals infinite scroller. Okay. So new route, same as before. Create a URL link for us, a hyperlink for us. This should auto rebuild. Here's my infinite scroller. There we go. And we can still, and this is what it would look like. Here's our about page, our home page, infinite scroller page. Cool, cool, cool. Life is good. Now, let's add in some extra code. So first things first, we need to add in a call to handle the onScroll method. So this is going to be, let's see, inside of our constructor. I typed this out manually when I did this demo the first time, and I got into some really weird errors, so I'm going to copy and paste it this time. Not out of laziness, just out of sheer worry that I'm going to have a typo. Basically, what we're doing here is we are going to, on our onScroll event, which is when we scroll our mouse, we're going to trigger debounce, and we are going to run the load apods function. So basically, if we hit the bottom of our page, so this is some JavaScript for basically checking our scroll position, run this function, and then we're going to have a 100 millisecond delay. Okay, load apods we'll define in a moment. Okay, in our infinite space component, we need to get our day. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this in. So new function, day offset. Basically, we are just getting some information about the current day. And now we're going to bring in this load apods function. And I'll talk through that as we go. Load apods. So this has a different way of accessing remote data. So we've been using Axios for calling remote URLs. This one is going to talk to nasa.gov, so it's still a remote call, but we're going to use request.get, and then basically that's part of our super agent package here. We probably could go ahead and use Axios if we wanted, but sometimes it's nice to see a different different bit of information. So basically what we're doing in here is we're going to make this call with our day offset. We pass in a demo key, so I assume there's some kind of an authentication method for students or something like that. We're packaging up a little bit of a JSON object with some information about the APOD results. We're going to set our local state for this particular component. So here you see our APODs update. So that was our state here. We're basically doing a little, it's a spreading operator. Basically, we're going to take this particular object and just kind of unpack it into our state. And again, I'm not kind of skimming through explaining this, but this is one way that we can append to our array here. Render is still going to be the same. So if we save this, go back to our page, still works, no errors, good. All right. So what this is doing, the day offset, I probably should have talked to that. We're getting the picture of the day from NASA. All right. Now we need to go ahead and actually render our response. And this is going to be a big chunk of code that I drop in here. So let's go ahead and talk through this as we go. So we have our key element. Now let's go ahead and add this bit. So a lot going on here. We are adding in a React fragment. Basically, we are mapping in from our APOD data, based on dates, we are going to have a title and an image, or we will have a iframe for videos. Basically, we're kind of doing a conditional check to see what information is coming in here. And we're going to render content appropriately. So a little bit deeper than we have gone before. I'd recommend checking out this React.fragment. I'm highlighting off screen like you know what I'm talking about. I'd recommend digging into this React.fragment to kind of see a bit more detail on that, but this is one way that we can kind of do conditional rendering here. All right, so we already have our main page updated, which is the next bit in the tutorial. So let's go ahead and see what we're getting. APODs is not defined. Well, let's go ahead and add in some of our error handling while we're waiting for me to figure this bit out. Okay, so we're going to add in making sure that if this thing did mount, so we talked about did mount a little bit before. We're going to add in some variables to our state to basically check. And we're going to add in our state information into our onScroll const. So basically adding our state, and we have a check to see if we have something wrong or we are loading or get out of this, otherwise load our data. And then we need to turn our load function into a check on our state. So before we had this little arrow function, we're going to say this dot set state is loading true, fix our typo, comma, okay. And I forgot an arrow right here. So basically, when we call load APOD, set our state to be loading, and then if we have an error after our .then call, I'm just going to recopy this whole thing because I feel like I've got a typo. Let's get rid of this. Basically what was added in was this bit, which I just typed out. I think I had a typo. And then we basically have an exception catcher to see if something went wrong with the loading, set our error, change our loading to false. All right. Then we have to add in our state to render. Oh, you know what? I know what I did. I forgot to add in the reference to the state. Silly, silly me. Although it wasn't there in the demo. Okay, well, you know what? We'll add this error handling in, and we'll go forward. Okay, so the issue was that the state wasn't part of render. That's fine. We will add it in here. If I refresh now, there we go. Okay, good. So the issue, I had my problem a few minutes ago. I was trying to figure out what's going on. We didn't have a reference to APODs in our render function. I don't think it's in the tutorial. I was kind of scrolling through and I didn't see it. So we need to have a reference to that here. Now this variable exists again. This other stuff is just kind of work in progress bit. All right, so we have our React fragment. Now if we have information about loading or anything else, basically we need to consider that. So let's go ahead and put this code here. So basically if we have an error, put our error statement. If it's loading, tell it we're loading. If we're done, say that we're done. Okay, so error messages should pop up now. Do we just have, what's going on here? Okay, I must have a typo somewhere. So we should see more than one. So I'm going to go ahead do the delightful thing. This is actually what I had to do before. Just going to drop the entire bit in. We aren't seeing one. Why are we only seeing one? I wonder. You know what? I think I need to move this to the top. Nope. All right, so what we're doing now is debugging, because scrolling should work, but it is not. Are you kidding me? So I don't know if you will run into this error. I'm going to chop this up because I was cursing off screen. There is a check in this tutorial for checking the inner height plus scroll top, seeing if it's equal to the offset height. Now, I decided to log those numbers because, again, this literally worked a few days ago and I tried it out. These numbers, for one, are floats, and for two, there appears to be some spacing going on here. So let's go ahead and say Math.ceil. Maybe that'll work. So basically, I'm going to go ahead and hopefully round up. Hey, look at that. Okay. So if you are struggling with this one, I started copying and pasting because I got frustrated with typing all this manually out and getting things put in the wrong place. So the intent was to work through this tutorial and show you a forever loading app. So here it's going to load 3 and then, yeah, and then we're going to have our little delay, right? So here's basically our picture of the day. If you get to the point where you're scrolling and nothing is working, check your values for what happens when you hit the bottom. You might need to add in a little bit of a threshold, like an extra, maybe the browser offset is slightly off. And you know what? I noticed that Chrome updated on me yesterday. I wonder if something happened with padding possibly. So anyway, what I did was just added this Math.ceil. I could say this plus 5 to give it a little bit of a buffer. But yeah, basically check that. But cool thing, we've got a infinitely scrolling thing. Now, what do we need for this? We need a data source on the back end that's going to send us this data. Okay, loading complete. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. I will be cutting this video up a touch just to hopefully get rid of some of my futzing around with things not working. But anyway, see you on the next one. Bye, everybody.